really want to thank all the King families for coming tonight. This is great to see just all these seats filled. And I've been told, as a special surprise tonight, each King family will be able to pick out one book tonight, and Mr. Harris is going to facilitate that. Is that right, Mr. Harris? Okay. All right. So that'll be a great little thing. Okay. We're very pleased to have our speaker, Candace Fleming, here with us this evening. I understand, Candace, that you are a storyteller from way back. Candace is the versatile and acclaimed author of more than 20 books for children. Her books cover a wide range of genres, including biographies, short stories, novels, and historical picture books. Her award-winning books include The Lincolns, winner of Boston Globe Horn Book Award, and The Family Romanov, winner of the 2015 Seibert Honor Medal. Please help me welcome Candace Fleming.
I'm on. Okay. How are you guys? How many of you guys have already seen me? Just raise your hand really quick. I love that. You can't count. But I love that because then I walked in and was like, oh, I have friends here. This is so great. And because I have friends here, I decided that I had to show you this video that my family sent to me yesterday. I live in Oak Park. And if you were feeling bad that you got a little snow, we got 5 inches yesterday. I know, so you can feel worse for us. Luckily, I was here. I missed it. But I got this video, and I had to show it because I talked to a couple of kids about this goofy video that I got. So before I even talk to you about writing, I have to show you this video, showing you, well, my family's brilliant way of showing me how much snow they got by filming the dog. And you just have to watch closely. Watch towards the end. And yes, you can ooh and ah at how cute my dog is. All right. Up, here he goes. They call him, here, Oxford, here, boy. Boom! Isn't that the most brilliant video ever? It was like, or not brilliant video ever. Those of you that heard me talk about seeds yesterday, story seeds, what do you think this is? A big story seed. I have to use this somehow in a story because how brilliant is that? Here, boy, and then the dog plows into you. I know. So now I have to be rid of it, slowly but surely. It's always fun to watch somebody play with their computer, isn't it? Okay. Some of the things I'm going to say tonight, some of you guys have probably heard, but there's a lot of other people in the room that haven't. I also am looking out across my audience, and I realize that I have readers from all different ages, from little to big. So I'm going to range story-wise. I'm going to talk about a little bit what I do as a writer. I'm also going to share some of the things, some of the stories that I've written and where those stories have come from. And hopefully I'm going to have a little time at the end for questions. So please, please, please feel free to ask me anything you want. I know that yesterday and today I didn't get a lot of time to spend with questions with kids. So if you have questions for me, this is your chance. And I always say that I love questions and I answer everything. Really, I will answer everything. So if you ask me how old I am, I will answer. If you ask me how much I weigh, I will answer. I do write fiction as well as nonfiction. So that doesn't necessarily mean I'll tell you the truth, but I will answer. Yesterday I told some of the kids that all of my stories really do start with me. My most important writing tool before I get to my computer, before I pick up a pen, before I pick up my notebook, my most important writing tools really are my eyes and ears. As a writer, I'm always walking around through my day-to-day life, and I am always looking for what I call story seeds, things that happen that inspire stories. And this is what writers do, first and foremost. We go out into our world, and we pay really close attention to all those things around us. We look for story ideas. We look for and listen for story ideas. We are, as my son Michael likes to say, spies and eavesdroppers. And I am. And he actually said that to me one time. He did that whole where the kid puts his hand on his hip, right? He's all huffy. You, mother, are a spy, an eavesdrop, and a gossip. And I said, I am. Thank you. Because I am always watching. I am always listening. And if I use it, Michael says it's gossip. But I don't gossip because, I'm not going to tell it exactly the way that I saw it. If I see you do something crazy today, or you do something crazy today, which I know I would. If I see you do that, would I use it exactly the way that I saw it? No. I'd bring that little idea back to my desk, and I'd change it to make it better. And this is what writers do. Whether I'm writing a picture book or whether I'm writing a novel, I'm always gathering those little story seeds. I thought I would start by telling you about one story today, especially since I have some little people in the audience. I thought I would talk about one story that I wrote, and it really was based on story seeds on my own life. I was a typical Monday morning. I was doing what I always do on this Monday morning. I sent my son Michael off to school. I opened the door. He went out the door. He headed down the driveway to catch the school bus. And I did what I always do as a mother. I waved goodbye to him. Goodbye, Michael. Have a nice day. I love you. And he got on the bus, and I turned around, and I was like, yes, he's gone. Because that means, every mother knows that, right? But that means that now it's me. They're gone off to school. Now it's my turn. And so I went off to work. I work in my house. I actually work in my office. There it is. And I sat down at my desk at my office, and I do what I do in my office. I wrote a story. And this particular day, now some days I'm there and I sit there and I play a lot of solitaire on my computer because I can't think of anything to write. I draw a lot of doodles because I can't think of what to write. But some days, my writing, it's like you're floating. I know that sounds crazy, but it's like the words kind of roll and the sentences sort of flow, and you feel as if it's like floating. You feel as if you're writing and you're floating on your imagination, and you're completely involved in your story. And that's how it was on this Monday when I sent Michael off to school. I went to work, and I was having a really good writing day. I was floating, and those words were flowing, and those sentences, they were just running across the page. And then, in the middle of all of that wonderful floating and rolling imagination, the phone rang. And it was, and you know how he's going to hate this, and it was my son Michael. And he said, Mom, you have to help me, please. I left my backpack at home. And if I don't have my backpack, I don't have my math homework, and I'll be in really trouble, so you've got to bring my backpack. Please, Mom, please. And so, did I say no? No, I'm a good mom. Or, okay, maybe stupid mom. I actually decided I would take that backpack to him. And so, I left that story that had been singing and flowing, and I got in my car, and I drove to the school, and I got out at the office, and I walked into the office where Michael was waiting for me, and I handed him his backpack, and he took it, and he's like, oh, Mom, thank you. And I'm like, oh, Michael, you're so welcome, and I did that. You can't help yourself. That's a cute face. And so I squeezed his little cheek, and I gave him a kiss. Mwah. And then I got back in my car, and I drove back to my house, and I sat back down at my desk, and I picked up my pencil and my paper, and I started to write. And pretty soon, once again, those sentences were flowing. The words were singing. My imagination, I was floating on it. It was that story. I was just right there. It was a good writing day until the phone rang again. And it was Michael. And he said, Mom, you have to help me, please. I forgot my lunch. Can you bring my lunch to me, please? Did I say no? Of course I didn't. I'm a good mother. I left my story again. And I went upstairs and I got his lunchbox and I got into the car and I drove to the school again. And I walked out into the office where Michael was waiting for me again. And I handed him his lunchbox. I'm glad you're Michael today. And he said, "Oh, Mom, thank you, thank you." But this time, I wasn't as happy. This time, I am not really feeling like I want to squeeze his cheek or tell him I love him. This time, all I can say is, "Michael, you're welcome." And I got back in my car, and I drove back to my house, and I sat back down at my desk, and I picked up my pencil, and I opened my notebook, and soon, those words, they were singing again. Those sentences, they were floating again. My imagination, I was taking off on my imagination. It was a good writing day until the phone rang. And guess who? It was Michael. And he says, Mom, you have to help me, please. I forgot my field trip money and my form. And if I don't have my money and my form in today, I cannot go on the field trip. Mom, you have to bring it for me, please. Did I say no? No, I'm a good mom. I said yes. And so I left my story again. And I went upstairs and I got his money and that form. And I got into my car again. And I drove to the school again. And I walked into that office where he was waiting for me again. And I handed him his stuff. And he's like, Mom, thank you, thank you. And I said, Michael, please do not call me again. And then I got back in my car when I drove back to my house. And I sat back down at my desk. And I opened up that notebook again. And I picked up my pen again. And I sat there and that story was all gone. That story that I'd been floating on, the story that had been singing, that story that had been flowing, that I was really, really writing, suddenly I had no idea why I was writing it. It made no sense. I didn't care about it anymore. That's because I'd been interrupted not once, not twice, but 3 times. I had sacrificed my story to my son. But before you feel sad for me, remember that I am a writer who's always watching and always listening and always thinking about stories. And all of a sudden, I thought to myself, fine, I lost that story I've been writing, but guess what? I have another story. I could write a story about my son, Michael. Couldn't I? I could. I could write a story about my son, Michael, calling me and calling me and calling me. And I could write a story about me, his hardworking, self-sacrificing mother. And let's add gorgeous to boot. And I could write a story about me, who answers his call again and again and again. But here's the fun part. I get to add imagination. I don't really want to write about Michael, and I don't really want to write about me, but I do want to write about the experience. So I'm going to take those story seeds and I'm going to plant them in my imagination. And I ended up creating a story about Michael, a story that I want to share with you today. And actually, I'm hoping that you can help me tell this story a little bit. But let me first show you the story that I ended up creating. And weirdly, because I turned Michael with my imagination, this is pretty great, I turned him into a baby bird. Actually, I turned him into a nest full of baby birds, and I turned myself into a mother bird. And weirdly, the baby birds look very much like Michael. Check this out. There's Michael. Now watch these baby birds. Isn't that weird? Michael, baby birds. It's like the illustrator was in my house. This is my story about Michael calling me and calling me and calling me again. And I wanted to share it with you today, but I'm hoping that you can help me tell this story. I want you to say 2 little sentences, and those 2 little sentences are feed us, feed us. Can you do it? Okay. Let's just practice just once. All right, ready? Ready, go.
Feed us, feed us.
Oh, gosh, you sound so good. Do it one more time.
Feed us, feed us.
You guys make such good baby birds. You didn't know you were going to come upstairs and have to do this. Parents are ready to run. It begins. on a spring morning. One spring morning, high in a nest, 7 speckled eggs begin to crack. 7 hungry babies open their beaks wide. Here you go, guys. Feed us. Feed us. The little ones cry. Of course, my precious cuddle fluff, Mama bird coos. I'll fly to the tall grass to find you some food. Flap a flap, swoop swoop, zoom zoom, yum. Mama zips back shoo, with a cricket for one. And that one baby says, gulp. 6 hungry babies squirm, stretch, and reach. Ready?
Feed us, feed us.
The little ones screech, yes, yes, my noisy warble pies. Mama bird coos. I'll fly to the orchard to find you more food. Flap a flap, swoop swoop, zoom zoom, yum. Mama flies back shoo, with a cherry for one. And that one baby says, gulp. 5 hungry babies hop up and down. Ready?
Feed us, feed us.
The little ones frown. Settle down, sweet hatchlings, Mama bird coos, and I'll fly to the schoolyard to find you more food. Flap a flap, swoop swoop, pant, pant, yum. Mama puffs back with a bread crust for one. And that one baby says, gulp. 4 hungry babies fret, sulk, and pout.
Feed us, feed us.
The little ones shout, hush, you little egg crackers, Mama bird coos. And I'll fly to the garden to find you more food. Flap a flap, swoop swoop, pant, pant, yum. Mama, poor Mama, limps back with a pea pod for one. And that one baby says, gulp. 3 hungry babies stamp their tiny feet. Babies?
Feed us, feed us.
The little ones shriek, give me strength and patience, Mama bird coos, so I can fly to the mill pond to find them more food. Flap a flap, swoop swoop, droop droop, yum. Mama struggles back with a minnow for one. And that one baby says, gulp. Oh, you're good gulpers, too. 2 hungry babies thrashing on the floor.
Feed us, feed us.
The little ones roar, I can do this for my babies, Mama bird coos. I can fly to the feeder to find them more food. Flap a flap, swoop swoop, drag, drag, yum. Mama stumbles back with a bird seed for one, and that one baby says, gulp. 1 hungry baby kicks, nips, and balls. Feed me! Feed me! The little one squalls. But Mama bird, she can't coo a word. She's completely out of breath. Wheezing, yet determined, she drops from the nest. Will she do it, or has she died? She fainted. She's exhausted. What do you think? Moms always do, don't they? They pull it out in the end, don't they? She drops from the nest. Flap a flap, swoop swoop, swoon swoon, yum. Mama staggers back with an earthworm for one, and that one last baby says, gulp. 7 quiet babies finally napping in the nest. Ah, coos Mama bird. Now I get to peep, peep, peep. 7 hungry babies open their beaks wide. Oh, no, not this time, Mama chirps. It's Daddy's turn to fly. You can see how you can use your own life. That's every mother in this room. And what I love even more about writing, it's like wish fulfillment, right? So you can have things happen in your life that maybe wouldn't happen otherwise. And this is where all of my stories come from. From those things that happened to me that you may not recognize they are from real life, but they are indeed from real life. Years and years ago, I think one of my very favorite stories I've ever written, years and years ago, began with, I actually decided for the very first time, now I'm, from Illinois, so You would think that I would actually know something about growing vegetables and planting things, but I don't. A few years ago, I decided for the very first time that I was going to do this crazy thing. I was going to actually plant a vegetable garden in my backyard, and I'd never done it before, but I was really excited to give it a try. So on that first warm spring day, you see the theme here. I keep talking about spring, hopefully. On that first warm spring day, I actually went out to my backyard and I turned my soil and I planted a whole bunch of seeds. I planted some carrots and some green beans and some peas and some onions. And then every day I would go out to my backyard and I would watch my vegetables grow. And every day they got a little taller, they got a little greener, they got a little fuller. And I was really, really proud of myself. Every morning I would go out. I actually kind of really attached to my vegetables. They were like my babies. I would go out every morning and I would weed them and I would water them. And call me strange, but I would sing to them. I'd go out there and I'd be like, oh, look at my green, green beans. Oh, look at my sweet, sweet peas. Oh, look at my cute carrots. And then one morning, I went out to my garden to look at my vegetables, to weed them, to water them, to sing at them. And something had come in the night and had chewed on my vegetables. Something terrible had come into my garden that night and chewed my vegetables. Guess what it was? It was what? Rabbits. Evil-fanged bunny rabbits had come into my garden and they had chewed up my sweet, darling little vegetables that I loved so much. And I was mad. So I knew I needed to keep them out of my garden. I knew that I needed a fence. But, and I'm embarrassed to admit this, all of a sudden I feel hot. I was a brand new gardener, so I didn't know a whole lot about gardening. And so I knew I needed a fence, but I wasn't really sure what kind of fence. And so I went to the hardware store, and I walked around, and I picked out a fence. And girls, you'll understand this. I picked out the cutest fence that I could find. You get that, right? And it was white, and it was wire, and it had pink and purple plastic flowers on it. And I put it around my garden, and it looked adorable. It was also only about this tall. Kept them out? No, heck no. They hopped right over them, and they chewed up my vegetables. Was I mad? I was. So I sent my husband and my sons out to the backyard, and I'm like, build me a big, tall fence that they can't hop over. And they did. They went out, and they built me this big, tall fence out of chicken wire and wooden stakes, and it was not cute. And it looked tall, and it looked tough, and it's all around my garden. And did it keep the bunnies out? You know what I discovered I didn't know? Bunnies actually dig. You knew it. Well, I did not. I should have had you over at my house. Because those bunnies, they dug under my fence and they ate my darling vegetables. Was I mad? I was. A friend of mine then came over to give me a little gardening advice. He'd been gardening a long time, and he was like, oh, Candy, which is what my friends call me, Candy. He said, forget the fences. What you need is an owl statue. Now, you and I know that in real life, an owl has been known to eat a bunny or two for lunch, right? So the idea is you give it a fake owl, you put it out there in the garden, and the bunnies think it's a real owl, and they're too afraid to come into your garden. It's like diabolical idea. So I go to the hardware store again, and I buy not one but two of the meanest, fiercest, scariest-looking owl statues you have ever seen. They have sharp beaks. They have sharp claws. I put one on either side of my garden, and they sit there looking like super scary, like this, like... And does it scare the bunnies? No. I look out my back window, and I see these bunnies coming into my yard. And have you ever noticed that bunnies, they look cute. Do not let them fool you. They have this really sassy, puff-tailed sort of attitude. Have you ever noticed that? So they come into my yard. They hop in. They're like, do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do. And they hop into my garden. Do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do. And then they stop because they see those owl statues. And then they do that other thing that rabbits always do. They do the bunny freeze, And then they look at my carrots. And then they look at my owl. And then they look at my carrots. And then they look at my owl. And then what do? They just eat my vegetables. Was I mad? I was so mad. Same friend comes down with another piece of advice. You wonder how much of a friend he really was. Because he's got another piece of advice. Oh, the owls didn't work. Get marigolds, he said. Marigolds supposedly have a smell that bunnies think is so nasty, so ucky, so absolutely P.U. that they take one whiff of marigolds and then they hop away. So I go back to the hardware store and I buy marigolds and I plant them all the way around my garden like a fence of flowers. Did it keep the bunnies out? Do you know what they did? They ate. Oh, you've tried it. Oh, because it doesn't work. They ate the marigold first, just the flowers, and then they ate my vegetables. Was I mad? Yeah. I was really mad. I actually stood at the edge of my garden and I looked at my fences that didn't work and my owls that weren't scary enough and my marigolds that were all gone. And I stood there and I went like this. Ah! Bad bunnies! Bad bunnies! And then I got this really great idea. Wait a minute. I'm a writer. All experiences can become a story. If I can't beat the bunnies in my own backyard, I can beat a book. I can beat them in a book. And I decided that I would write a story about gardener versus bunny rabbit. So I stomped back to my office, I sat down at my desk, and I wrote this story, a story that I'm now going to share with you. It's called Muncha, Muncha, Muncha. And you can see I've made a few changes with my imagination because, again, I don't want to put me in this story. How boring. And so instead, I turned myself into this little old man. Do we look alike? That's nice of you to say because I was telling this story to kindergartners one time, and I said to them, so who is Mr. McGreevey in real life? And this beautiful little brown-eyed kindergartner, she looks up at me with her sweet face, and she goes, you, because you look just like him. And it begins here. 4 years, Mr. McGreevey dreamed of planting a garden. He dreamed of getting his hands dirty, of growing yummy vegetables, and of gobbling them all up. But he never once tried it until this spring, said Mr. McGreevey, this spring, by golly, I'm going to plant a garden. So he hoed, and he sowed, and he watched his garden grow. Lettuce, carrots, peas, tomatoes. Yum, yum, yummy, said Mr. McGreevey. I'll soon fill my tummy with crispy, fresh veggies. Guess who else is thinking about filling their tummy with crispy, fresh veggies? Yeah, and those bunnies have T-shirts. But no pants. But one night, when the sun went down and the moon came up, 3 hungry bunnies appeared. Tippy, 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 Pat. Muncha, Muncha, Muncha. The next morning, when Mr. McGreevey saw his gnawed sprouts, he was angry. So he built a small wire fence all around his vegetable garden. There, he declared, no bunny can get into my garden now. Do you think they can? And you know that's what they're thinking. They're plotting, right? And the sun went down, and the moon came up, and Tippy, 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 Pat, spring, hurdle, dash, 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 and Muncha, Muncha, Muncha. The next morning, when Mr. McGreevey saw his nibbled leaves and his gnawed sprouts, he was really angry. So he built a tall wooden wall behind the small wire fence all around his vegetable garden. Ha, he huffed, those flop ears will never get over it. No bunny can get into my garden now. Do you think? Do you see him? And the sun went down, and the moon came up, and Tippy, 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 Pat, dig, scrabble, scratch, 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 spring, hurdle, dash, 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 and Muncha, Muncha, Muncha. The illustrator of this book, Brian Karras, by the way, claims that this bunny right here is an exact replica of one that lives in his garden. He swears that the rabbit lays on its back and drips lettuce leaves into its mouth. Do you believe that? Yeah, well, maybe. He lives in New York. Maybe rabbits are different there. The next morning, when Mr. McGreevey saw his chewed stems, his nibbled leaves, and his gnawed sprouts, he was really, really angry. So he made a deep, wet trench beneath the tall wooden wall behind the small wire fence all around his vegetable garden. Ha! He snorted. Those pufftails can't get under it. They can't get over it. No bunny can get into my garden now. Do you think they can? And I was sharing this with fifth graders not too long ago. We actually were using it for writing, modeling. And I actually had a fifth grader suggest they put a shark in the moat, and that would have taken care of all the problems. And the sun went down, and the moon came up, and Tippy, 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 Pat, dive, paddle, splash, 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 dig, scrabble, scratch, 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 spring, hurdle, dash, 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 and muncha. Oh, good, you do it. The next morning, when Mr. McGreevey saw his chomp blossoms, his chewed stubs, his nibble leaves, and his gnawed sprouts, he was furious. So he hammered and blocked, sawed and stocked, drilled and filled and trapped and locked, and he built this huge, enormous thing before the deep, wet trench, beneath the tall wooden wall, behind the small wire fence, all around his vegetable garden. I've outsmarted those twitch whiskers for sure, he exclaimed. They can't get under it, they can't get over it, and they can't get through it. No bunny, no way, no how can get into my vegetable garden now. Do you think they can? Yeah. Oh, they're wily. And the sun went down, and the moon came up, and Tippy, 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 stop. Those 3 hungry bunnies looked and touched and smelled the huge, enormous thing before them, and then, Tippy, 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 Pat, the bunnies hopped away. The next morning, when Mr. McGreevey saw his untouched vegetables, he was happy. I beat the bunnies, he whooped, and he did a jiggly, wiggly victory dance. Then he crawled under, squeezed between, pushed through, and jumped across until he reached his vegetable garden. Who else has reached? If you look closely, they have gotten into his basket. There they are. He's carried them in. Ah, sighed Mr. McGreevey at last. Smacking his lips, he picked and pulled up lettuce, carrots, peas, tomatoes, and with his basket overflowing, he reached inside for something yummy. And besides carrots, he found bunnies, and those bunnies said, muncha, muncha, muncha. But it is not the end of our story. One last picture, no words. What does Mr. McGreevey end up doing? He ends up sharing. Although, look at his face. Does he look really happy about this? No. That's that old saying, if you can't beat him, join him. That's exactly what he's doing. And we know that there's 2 books after that where he's, trying to keep the bunnies out of his house and then accidentally takes them along on vacation. It's like having kids. They're everywhere. So incidents in your own life become stories. The last story I want to share tonight actually is a story. I found it at the beach. I found it at the beach. I saw an incident at the beach involving 2 seagulls that attacked a birthday cake. Somebody was having a party. And I ended up writing this story that really has nothing to do with the beach, but it has everything to do with me as a writer. And I really think it has everything to do with everybody else in this room who writes anything. And it starts here with a messenger from the king, and he has an invitation. And he's delivering this invitation to this birthday party invitation. It's the princess's birthday party. He's taking that invitation to the kids who always go to the princess's party, the rich kids, the privileged kids. But one of those invitations slips out of the messenger's bag, and unknown to him, it glides on the breeze, and it slides under the door of a poor boy named Jack, who believes this invitation is truly for him, and he truly wants to go. Problem is, Jack's a poor boy. He doesn't have any money to buy the princess anything, and he doesn't have anything fine enough to give her. But he's also a clever boy. And he decides that if he can't buy her a gift, he'll make her a gift. He's going to make her a birthday cake. And so that very day, he gets to work. He trades his axe for a bag of sugar and his quilt for a bag of flour, and he gives the hen a handful of grain for her eggs, and he kisses the cow on her nose for a pail of her sweetest milk, and he gathers some walnuts. He dips, makes little birthday candles, and then he goes to the strawberry patch where he searches and he searches until he finds the most succulent strawberry of the season. And then he gets to work. He churns and chops and mixes and bakes, and he creates a pretty great gift for the princess. It's 2 layers of golden cake covered in buttery frosting. It's ringed with 10 candles. In walnut pieces, he spelled out the words, "Happy Birthday, Princess." And in the middle, right in the place of honor, he's put that most succulent strawberry of the season. It's a pretty great gift. The next morning, he heads off to the princess's birthday party, proudly carrying his cake in front of him. But as he crosses a field, 24 blackbirds spy that cake. They swoop down. They cry, "Ah, caw, 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 caw!" They swoop down, and when they fly away, they take all the walnut pieces that spell "Happy Birthday, Princess." Now, Jack, he could think that his cake is ruined, but he's an optimist. He always looks at the bright side. He still has 2 layers of golden cake covered in buttery frosting, ringed with 10 candles, and in the middle he still has the most succulent strawberry of the season. He continues on to the castle. And soon he comes to a bridge, and out from under the bridge steps a big, hairy troll, and the troll demands a toll. But Jack, he doesn't have any money. He does, however, have a cake, and so he slides off the bottom layer of that cake and hands it to the troll, and he crosses the bridge. He's not empty-handed. He still has 1 layer of golden cake covered in buttery frosting and ringed with 10 candles, and in the middle he still has the most succulent strawberry of the season. He continues on to the castle. Soon he comes to the dark, dark woods, and it is so pitch black in those woods that he can't see anything in front of him. All he can do is light one of those tiny candles, and in its tiny golden glow, he's able to move forward a few feet until that candle poofs out. So he lights a second candle, and in its golden glow, he moves forward a little farther until that second candle poofs out. He lights a third candle. He lights a fourth candle. He lights all 10 of those candles. And just as that last and final candle sputters to its end, he steps to the other side of the woods. He's not empty-handed. He still has 1 layer of golden cake, and in the middle he still has the most succulent strawberry. He continues on to the castle. Soon he comes to a clearing where there's a gypsy woman and her dancing bear. And the gypsy woman picks up her concertina and she starts to play oompa oompa. And the bear jumps to his feet and he starts to dance, shuffle, shuffle, kick. And Jack, he wants to dance too. And so for 1 second, just 1 second, he lays down his cake to dance with the bear. And in that second, the bear gulps up the cake and then spits out the strawberry. Because Samson loves cake, but he does not like fruit. Jack, he's not empty-handed. He still has the most succulent strawberry of the season. And so he continues on to the castle, over the drawbridge, into the castle courtyard, where the princess is receiving her gifts and her guests, and she's bored. "Oh," she says, "what have you brought me? Another diamond tiara? How tiresome. Another emerald necklace? How dull." Jack gets at the end of the line, ready to present his most succulent strawberry, when he feels a tap on his shoulder, and he turns, and it's the guard, and the guard says, "What have you brought the princess?" And she says, "I brought her the most succulent strawberry of the season." Then the guard says, "That is a beautiful strawberry, but you cannot give that to the princess. She's allergic to strawberries." And so he takes the strawberry, and he eats it himself. And now Jack truly is empty-handed, and he's also at the front of the line. And the princess looks at him in her very bored voice, and she says, "What have you brought me?" And Jack, he stutters, he stammers, he doesn't quite know what to say. And finally he says, "Princess, let me tell you what happened to me today." And he tells her about the cake he made, and then he tells her about the 24 blackbirds, and about the big hairy troll in the dark, dark wood, and the bear who loved cake but did not like strawberries, and the guard who took away that strawberry because she was allergic. And when he finished, Princess, she clapped her hands in delight. "You brought me a story," she says, "and an adventure story at that. That is the best present I've gotten all day. And because, Jack, you brought me that awesome gift, I'm going to give you the honor of cutting my awesome cake." But here's the end. All that worry about stuff, all that worry about cake, no one's bothered to take a bite because they're still telling stories. As a matter of fact, oh, there I am. As a matter of fact, the princess will walk Jack home, and they will still be telling stories. The reason I say this story is about me is because Jack, well, in the story, he wandered through his life, and he collected all those story seeds, and he wove them together to tell the princess a story, to give her a gift. I wander through my life, and I gather up story seeds to weave them together to tell you a story. And I'm guessing that every single one of you, when you go to write your stories, will do the same thing. Gather up those story seeds from your own life, leave them together, then tell a story. And I am. I'm going to finish there. Does anyone have any questions for me? Do they have a question? Yeah. My parents really inspired me to write stories. They were book lovers. We had a lot of books. We went to the library. We told stories. We read out stories out loud. Libraries inspire me to continue to tell stories because I love the library. All those stories, I'm going to add one. You know, does that make sense? Sir? What did he ask? Oh, I'm 22. Do you believe that? Oh, I love you for that. Thank you. Sir?
Who wrote this book?
I did. Did you like it?
Yes.
Oh, awesome. Sir?
You wrote this book.
I did write that book. I did. Have you read it?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Did you like it?
Yeah.
What would I do if you said no? Cry, I guess. Yeah.
What's your favorite book that you have written?
Okay, this is the very worst answer I ever give, right? Because you want to know my favorite book. And here's my problem. I have like 32 of them, and every single one of them is like my baby. I raised them up from little story seeds, and I sent them to live at the library all by themselves. So if you ask me, it's like asking me to choose, who's your favorite kid, Scott or Michael? And depending on the day, I might be able to give you an answer. But I can't really. I love them both. And so all of them are my favorite. Well, all of them I love. But here's my favorite. The favorite book is always the one that I'm working on right now because it's the book that I give all my attention to. I give all my time. I think about it. I worry about it. I pick at it. I'm working on it. When I finish it and I send it off into the world, guess what will be my new favorite? Will be the next book that I'm working on. Does that make sense to you? Yeah. Yeah. Yes, ma'am. I love this question. How old was I when I started writing books? Oh, about your age. I didn't publish them, but writers are not people that publish. Writers are people who write. And so I've been writing really since I was your age. I've been writing since I wrote all kinds of stories. I even wrote my first book in 5th grade. It was a mystery. Do you like mysteries? Mine was 10 pages, 10 chapters, and it had a title, Who Done It? It was, yeah. So I've been writing books as long as I can remember. I've been publishing books for about 15 years now. Yeah. Sir? Oh, it's a good question. My favorite book that I did not write, and I have an answer. My favorite book that I did not write is a little picture book by a man named William Steig, and the title is Sylvester and the Magic Pebble. And if you haven't read it, you have to go and read it. It's absolutely magical, wonderful. I wish I had Sylvester like for a pet, my own donkey for a pet. What do you think? Yeah. Did you have a question or are you just stretching? Oh, okay. Did you have a question or are you just stretching? Just stretching. Sir? Oh, I like all foods. What's my favorite food? Chocolate. What's yours? Oh, really? We have so much in common. Look at us. And I like chocolate in all of its forms, except maybe not bacon chocolate. I don't know. I just saw that the other day. I thought, blah. Get your pork out of my bacon, my chocolate. Anything else? Anything over here? The silent side of the room? The cute side of the room. Look how cute they are. But you're silent. Because now I've embarrassed them. Thank you so much, really, for coming and spending time with me tonight. I know it's a school night, and it's late, and it's cold, so you guys should give yourselves applause.